The children were the first to see them. By the riverbank of Heron's Reach, a half-dozen settlers' children stopped mid-play as the morning sky fractured with streaks of silver fire. The sunlight dimmed, shadows lengthened, and then the sound followed, low, resonant, metallic, rolling across the hills like thunder dragged across steel. The adults assumed it was a meteor shower, until the first wave of detonation struck. The colony's commnet erupted with alarms. Emergency sirens blared from rooftops, their rising wails swallowed by the deeper roar of descending vessels. Across the valley, transport ships burst into flame. Fuel depots ignited, and whole neighborhoods vanished under clouds of molten dust. A planetary broadcast cut through the chaos, translated into crisp Terran standard. Remember this lesson, humans, the stars are not yours. The voice was cold, deliberate, dripping with contempt. It lingered even after the attackers turned their cannons back toward the ground. In less than an hour, Heron's Reach, the pride of the frontier, a world still fresh with forests and rivers, was reduced to a scarred ruin. The Dominion fleet departed as swiftly as it had arrived, leaving only fire, wreckage, and silence. The survivors' distress call traveled faster than the flames. On the orbital station Aegis, Commander Elias Vance stood alone in the comms chamber, eyes fixed on the shaky transmission. Smoke clouded the image. A woman clutched her bleeding child, whispering pleas that cut off as the signal burned to static. Elias did not flinch, but those around him fell into stunned silence. Officers, technicians, and aides waited for him to break. He did not. He folded his hands behind his back, his expression calm, voice low and steady. "How many confirmed casualties?" he asked. "Initial estimates, 25,000, replied Lieutenant Jorah Hale. Her voice wavered. Her own brother had lived on Heron's Reach. Survivors scattered in the forests. Minimal defense assets remain. Elias absorbed the words, then turned from a screen. Relay all footage to the Council. Full encryption. No delays. Another officer hesitated. "Sir, releasing this footage, it will inflame the colonies. The Council may." Elias cut him off with a sharp glance. "The Council will see what I've seen. Every colony will. This is not an incident to hide. It is a declaration." Light years away, aboard the Dominion flagship Vericar, High Strategist Corvon reclined in his throne-like chair. The hologram of Heron's Reach burning hovered before him. His golden eyes glimmered with satisfaction. "So fragile," he muttered to his advisors. "They scatter like prey at the crack of thunder. This strike will remind them. Humanity's grasp exceeds its station." One aide bowed his scaled head. "The humans will protest, of course, but their council lacks the spine for war. They will bluster, then submit, as they always do." Corvon allowed a thin smile. "Indeed, they will curse us in private, but in public they will bow. Better make the point now, before their frontier grows unchecked. A colony burned today prevents a rebellion tomorrow." The chamber echoed with approval. None dared suggest he had miscalculated. Back aboard Aegis, Elias Vance walked the length of the war room, every step deliberate. His senior officers waited, tension heavy in the air. Holomaps flickered, displaying the Dominion's known borders, fleets, and supply routes. They chose Heron's Reach because it was undefended. Admiral Rena Torres said bitterly. Her dark eyes blazed. "They thought it would frighten us back into Seoul." Malik Chun, head of logistics, shook his head. "We cannot outmatch them, Commander. Not yet. Their fleets outnumber ours 3-1. If we escalate—" They escalated. Elias interrupted, his voice flat but firm. He paused at the head of the table. Heron's Reach was not a battlefield. It was homes, families, children. They did not make a military strike. They made a mistake. Silence followed. Every officer felt the shift, the steady weight of his words pressing against their doubt. Elias continued, "The Dominion believes this display will break us. They believe fear will keep us in our place. They do not know humanity." Rena leaned forward. "Then what is our response?" Elias raised his eyes to the burning hologram of Heron's Reach. His composure remained, but in the steel of his tone, his fury bled through. "Our response is survival sharpened into retribution. They think us weak. We will show them the cost of underestimation. Assemble our fleets. Every ship, every world willing to fight. Malik swallowed. The Council may block mobilization. They will see what Heron's Reach has seen, Elias said, and they will decide if we bow to ashes or rise in fire. The next day, the transmission Elias ordered circulated through every colony, every outpost, every orbital habitat in human space. Faces young and old stare at the ruins of Heron's Reach. They heard the Dominion's mocking proclamation, and something older than fear stirred in their blood. On Mars, dock workers volunteered to retrofit outdated freighters into gunships. On Luna, students abandoned lecture halls to enlist. In the Belt, miners pledged entire halls of ore to fuel warship production. The Dominion thought a massacre would fracture humanity. Instead, it forged unity. On Aegis, Elias stood once more before the stars, hands clasped behind his back. Jorah Hale approached, her voice quieter than before. "My brother was there," she said. "I saw him in the first seconds of that transmission." And then she trailed off, unable to finish. Elias looked at her, not with pity, but with the same steady calm he had held since the moment it began. "Grief will have its place. But today we have duty. Your brother is not gone while you still carry him forward. Remember that when the time comes." Jorah's jaw tightened. She saluted. "Yes, Commander." Elias turned back to the stars. The Dominion ships were gone, but he could still see their shadows cutting across the light of Heron's Reach. "They believe they've taught us fear," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "But fear is not what grows in humanity when we are struck. What grows is resolve." His reflection in the viewport stared back at him, sharp-eyed, unbroken. "They will learn this truth," Elias whispered, "and they will remember in fire." The council chamber was silent when the footage ended. Heron's Reach burned across the vast holoscreen, the screams of settlers lingering like smoke in the room. Men and women who usually drown debate in rhetoric sat pale and quiet. For once, even politics had no words. Elias Vance stood at the center, posture straight, hands clasped behind him. His voice carried without needing to rise. "You have seen it. Civilians butchered. A colony erased not for resources or territory, but to make a point. They meant to frighten us into silence. Tell me, will you let their lesson stand?" An older counselor cleared his throat. "Commander Vance, no one denies the tragedy, but we face reality. The Dominion's fleets dwarf our own. To fight is to invite extinction." Elias turned his eyes on him. "Extinction does not come when you fight. It comes when you kneel." The word struck deeper than volume ever could. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Another counselor, younger, leaned forward. "We cannot fight them ship for ship, but if we do nothing, we invite more Heron's Reaches." Elias gave a single nod. "Exactly. The Dominion has already declared war. The question is whether we answer or whether we teach our children to bow." The debate ignited then, some voices calling for caution, others for vengeance. Elias said no more. He had delivered the spark. Now the fire would spread. News of Heron's Reach moved faster than light. By the next cycle, every colony, station, and orbital habitat in human space had seen the smoldering ruins and heard the Dominion's words. On Mars, the docks thundered with the sound of refitted freighters taking on armor and cannons. On Luna, students abandoned lecture halls to enlist, their professors pausing lessons mid-sentence to watch them go. In the Belt, miners diverted entire shipments of ore to the Navy, promising more with every dig. Humanity did not fracture. It closed ranks. On Aegis, the war room buzzed with motion. Officers streamed between consoles, data scrolled across maps. Fleets blinked into readiness. Elias stood at the center table as Admiral Rena Torres entered, dropping a slate of new reports onto the surface. "Volunteers are flooding recruitment hubs faster than we can process," she said. "Shipyards are working triple shifts. Some colonies are refitting civilian craft on their own authority." Malichin followed her, weary-eyed, carrying a tablet crammed with logistical charts. "Resources are stretched already. Fuel convoys are thin. We can't arm every freighter that rolls into the yards." Rena shot him a sharp look. We can't turn them away, either. People need to fight. And ships need supplies to move, Malik countered. A fleet without fuel is wreckage waiting to happen. Their voices clashed across the table until Elias raised a hand. Both of you are right. And both of you will do your jobs. Torres, coordinate fleet integration. Chun, keep them supplied even if you have to bleed rock by rock out of the belt. Malik exhaled but nodded. Rena straightened and saluted. Elias looked between them, his tone steady. This is not desperation. It is resolve. The Dominion will not understand it until they see it in battle. And when they do, they will know they lit the wrong fire. Later that evening, Elias found Lieutenant Jorahale in the observation deck, staring at the stars. Her reflection in the glass was drawn tight, grief-bound under discipline. You requested assignment to the Heron's Reach file. Elias said quietly. Yes, sir, she answered without turning. I know their patrol routes. I studied them before the attack. I can predict their next movements. He studied her profile, the tension in her jaw. Revenge can sharpen a blade or snap it. Which will it do to you? Her eyes flicked toward him, sharp and unwavering. Sharpen, sir. I'll see to that. Elias held her gaze a long moment, then nodded. Very well. You'll have your chance. But remember, this war isn't about one colony or even one family. It's about all of us. Don't lose sight of that. I won't, she said, voice firm. In the Dominion's core, Corvalin listened to reports of human mobilization with thinly veiled disdain. His aide spoke of volunteers, of fleets forming faster than expected, of miners turning production to war. Corvalin waved a clawed hand dismissively. They are stirring, yes, but this is noise, not thunder. A primitive response, unsustainable. The humans will burn their own strength faster than we ever could. One aide shifted uneasily. Yet, strategists they are uniting. Reports indicate unusual discipline. If they are prey, Corvalin snapped. Prey may thrash when cornered, but they do not become predators. Let them come. When their fleets meet ours, the galaxy will remember their proper place. Back on Aegis, Elias watched the first human fleet assemble beyond the station's hull. Hundreds of ships, from sleek war frigates to lumbering converted freighters, glinted against the stars. Engines burned bright, a scattered constellation, a resolve drawn together. Rena joined him at the viewport, her eyes narrowed. It's not the grand fleet of soul history books. Half of them will break under heavy fire. Elias didn't look away from a view. Then the other half will carry them forward. War isn't won by perfection. It's won by persistence. And what if persistence is enough? He finally turned to her, expression calm, voice iron. Then we make enough. She studied him a moment, then gave a short nod. The first fleet burned for the edge of Dominion space. On Earth, on Mars, in the Belt, people stopped to watch the live feeds. Children pointed at the screens. Old veterans clenched their fists. In every home and habitat, humanity watched its answer to Heron's Reach rise into the dark. On the command deck, Elias stood at the center, the stars wheeling across the viewport. He thought of the council chamber, of Jorah's eyes, of Rena and Malik's arguments, of the miners pledging there, or of the volunteers flooding the stations. All of it converged here. He touched the comm switch. His voice carried across every ship in the fleet. Today we leave Sol not as separate colonies, but as one people. The Dominion believes they frighten us into silence. They will learn otherwise. We do not fight for glory. We fight because Heron's Reach still burns in the dark, and we will carry that fire with us until justice is done. The channel went silent. Engines flared brighter. The fleet surged forward. Elias turned once more to the viewport. Earth's blue curve slipped behind them, shrinking into memory. Ahead stretched the stars of Dominion space, the Dominion outpost of Irad, for drifted on the edge of a pale, dying star. It was not a fortress, not even a priority stronghold, just a relay, lightly defended. Its garrison more concerned with boredom than vigilance. That was why Elias chose it. From the viewport of the Resolute, he studied the pale crescent of the station. Its angular plating caught faint sunlight, a dull reflection against the void. Around it, only a handful of cruisers patrolled. Lazy arcs, predictable. Admiral Torres, Elias said quietly. Rena stepped forward. All ships in formation. Stealth screens holding. We're outside their sensor envelope. Good. Signal the fleet. We strike hard, fast, and leave nothing standing. Her lips pressed into a thin line. A clean first blow. Elias gave a single nod. The galaxy will hear it. The fleet slipped closer, shadows on the edge of detection. Converted freighters held steady beside warships. Every reactor humming under restraint. Crews waited, tension coiled tighter with every kilometer. In the tactical pit, Jorah Hale's hands flew across controls, eyes fixed on Dominion patrol vectors. Their sweep cycle leaves a gap every 32 seconds. That's our entry window. Confirmed, said Malik from the logistics board, voice clipped. He had none of Jorah's edge, but his calm carried weight. Fuel margins tight but sufficient. Recommend immediate strike before another sweep. Elias stepped to the command dais. Then we waste no more time. The first salvo came from the Resolute itself. Torpedoes streaked across the void, their trails vanishing into black. A heartbeat later, they slammed into the nearest Dominion cruiser. Shields flared, then buckled. The explosion tore the vessel apart in a blossom of fire. Alarm screamed across Varadfor. Fleet detected us. Jorah called. Patrol ships moving to intercept. Too late, Elias said. All ships engage. The quiet void erupted into chaos. Human warships surged forward, cannons blazing. Converted freighters disgorged swarms of missile pods. The Dominion scrambled, cruisers wheeling, weapon-spitting crimson lances. On the bridge, the deck thrummed under each blast. Reports cascaded across comms. Hits, damage, return fire. Elias absorbed it all, his voice steady, issuing orders without hesitation. Squadron 3, flank and cut their line. Keep their fire off the freighters. Torres, press the gap, drive us straight through to station. Rena's voice was iron. Understood. Resolute with me. The first true clash came in the shadow of the station. A Dominion destroyer surged forward, cannons hammering. One blast clipped the side of the Endeavor, peeling metal from its flank. Smoke filled its bridge, but the ship held. Jorah's eyes narrowed, fingers racing. Locking targeting solution. Take it, Elias said. A barrage lands from the Resolute, spearing the destroyer amidships. The vessel shuddered, broke apart, fire spilling into the void. Cheers erupted across the comms. But victory was never without cost. A human freighter, the Ironwake, caught a salvo broadside. The converted vessel buckled under barrage, its hull rupturing in violent silence. Dozens of lives vanished in an instant. Rena's jaw clenched. We can't hold if they pin us here. Elias's reply was cold steel. Then we don't hold. We push. The station loomed larger, its defense turrets belching fire. Torpedoes streaked back in return, carving into its plating. Metal warped. Flames licking from breaches. Shields at 40%, Malik reported, his voice still calm despite the chaos. We cannot sustain prolonged exchange. Then we end it now. Elias strode forward, his voice ringing across the fleet channel. All ships. Focus fire on the station. Break it apart. Make the strike the message they will never forget. Every cannon turned. A storm of fire ripped into the Dominion relay. Turrets disintegrated. Hangars collapsed inward. The station convulsed under barrage, its frame buckling. Sparks cascading into the void. On the Dominion command deck, officers shouted in panic. Their commander, scales pale with fear, tried to rally them. Hold the line. Reinforcements are en route. But reinforcements would come too late. The final torpedo slammed into the reactor core. For a fraction of a second, Varad shone brighter than its dying star. Then it disintegrated in a cataclysmic burst. The shock wave rippled outward, rocking even the human fleet. And then silence, where once the Dominion's outpost had stood. Only fragments drifted, glowing embers against endless black. On the Resolute, the bridge fell quiet. Smoke drifted from overheated consoles. Crew stared at the viewport, watching wreckage scatter like ash. Elias broke the silence. Status. Rena scanned the displays. 4 ships lost. 8 heavily damaged. Casualties significant. And the Dominion? She allowed herself the faintest edge of satisfaction. Crushed. Jorah exhaled slowly, eyes locked on the debris. We actually did it. Elias's expression remained unreadable. This was only their outpost. Their true fleet will answer. This victory will draw them out, and that's what we need. Malik's gaze flicked toward him. You sound as if you wanted them to notice. Elias finally allowed a grim smile. I do. Every empire believes itself untouchable until blood proves otherwise. Today, the Dominion bled. Far across the void, Corvalin received the news with a snarl. Reports of the station's destruction scrolled across the chamber walls. His claws dug into the armrest of his throne. Humans, he spat, the word dripping with venom. They dare strike Dominion ground? One of his lieutenants bowed low. Strategist, it was a minor relay. Insignificant. Insignificant. Corvalin roared, rising to his full height. They turned our insignificance into their triumph. Now the galaxy whispers of human defiance. He leaned forward, eyes blazing. Mobilize the fleets. If they crave war, I will give it to them until their stars burn out. Back on the Resolute, Elias stood alone on the observation deck. Debris still floated beyond the glass. Silent testimony to the day's battle. He thought of the lost freighters, of crews who had left families behind believing they would return heroes. He thought of Heron's Reach and the fires still burning in human hearts. Rena joined him quietly. You know this was only the beginning. Yes, Elias said. His gaze never left the void. And beginnings are what decide the ending. She studied him, then nodded once, her voice low. Then we'd better be ready for the storm we just called down. Elias finally turned, his expression hard as iron. We'll be ready. The Dominion thinks they rule by fear. Today, they learn we don't fear them. Tomorrow, they'll learn we can break them. The Dominion did not wait long. Only 6 days after Verad were burned, the sky above Heron's Reach split open. A fleet larger than any Elias had dared predict surged from hyperspace. Sleek warships, armored giants, their hulls glistening with cold precision. At the center, a battle carrier dwarfed the rest, bristling with turrets and command spires like the spines of some leviathan. On the Resolute, alarms screamed the moment their signatures registered. Contacts multiple. Jorah's voice cracked sharp and fast. Reading at least 30 cruisers, confirmed carrier class. They've come for blood. Elias stood rigid at the viewport, jaw tightening. So they answered. Rena Torres paced beside him, hand hovering over her holstered sidearm as though the Dominion were already aboard. Not a raid this time. That's a fleet built to erase us. Malik's calm broke at last. His eyes widened at the logistics panel. We're outnumbered 5-1. Elias turned slowly, surveying each officer in the command pit. Numbers don't win wars. Resolve does. We've bled them once. We'll bleed them again. Sound the alarm across the Reach. Every gun, every ship, every fighter launches now. The colony world erupted with activity. Civilian yards disgorged hastily refitted freighters. Orbital platforms spun up their ancient cannons. Fighters swarmed from bays like angry hornets. Down on the surface, civilians scrambled into bunkers. Engineers armed old planetary defense batteries long left to rust. Every hand, soldier or not, moved with grim determination. The memory of Dominion firestorms drove them harder than orders ever could. The first barrage came without warning. Scarlet beams lanced from Dominion cruisers, slicing through orbit. A defense platform lit up like a second sun before vanishing in a cloud of shrapnel. Platform Gamma destroyed. Jorah reported, voice clipped. Another blast caught a freighter mid-launch, scattering debris across the void. Rena slammed a fist against her console. They're targeting our launch sites, cutting us off before we can mobilize. Elias's response was iron. Then we take their blades away. Bring the fleet forward. All squadrons intercept. Human warships surged to meet the oncoming tide. Converted freighters fired missile storms, filling the void with streaking contrails. The Resolute led the charge, cannons roaring, each volley tearing into the advancing wall of Dominion steel. The clash was immediate, brutal. Fighters tangled in furious dogfights, trails of flame marking sudden deaths. A human corvette rammed headlong into a Dominion destroyer, both ships erupting in blinding fire. Malik's calm had returned, though his words came fast. Casualties mounting, ammunition expenditure critical. If this keeps up, Elias cut him off. We don't measure survival in reserves. We measure it in victories. Amid the chaos, the Dominion carrier loomed untouched, orchestrating the assault with cold efficiency. From its vast bays poured endless fighters, each wave reinforcing the attack. Its turrets cut down human ships with mechanical precision. Jorah's hands tightened on her console. We'll never hold if that monster stays in the fight. Elias fixed his gaze on the carrier, a grim smile tugging at the edge of his lips. Then we don't let it. Rena's head snapped toward him. You can't mean... I do, he said, voice hard. We cut the head. The body falters. Torres, ready to strike wings. Hale, plot me a course right to the heart of their formation. We're going for their carrier. The order rippled through the fleet. Shock at first, then grim acceptance. Ships reformed, turning their battered hulls toward the Leviathan. The Dominion, confident in numbers, let them come. Arcs of fire raked across space, hammering human shields. One by one, vessels fell back or fell apart, yet the formation pressed on, resolute at its spear. The gauntlet was merciless. A freighter exploded a port, its cargo of munitions igniting like a starburst. A corvette to starboard sheared in two under concentrated fire. Human ships staggered, but the line never broke. On the bridge, the deck shuddered with every hit. Sparks cascaded from ruptured conduits. Acrid smoke burned the air. Shields at 20%. Malik shouted, "Hold them." Elias barked, "We just need one chance." That chance came in a gap between Dominion escorts, a flaw born of arrogance. Jorah's eyes blazed. Opening ahead. Vector clear, the carrier approach. Drive us in, Elias ordered. The Resolute surged forward, squadrons flanking tight. Dominion fighters swarmed, but human wings intercepted, their dogfights a storm of fire and debris. The carrier's looming hull filled the viewport, a wall of steel bristling with defenses. Target acquired. Jorah said, voice sharp with adrenaline. Reactor coordinates locked. Elias's voice dropped to a razor's edge. All ships, concentrate fire. The void lit up. Torpedoes, plasma bolts, rail slugs. Every weapon hammered into the carrier's hull. Shields flared, groaned, and buckled. Armor scorched and peeled. Fire gushed from torn plating. The carrier roared back, turrets shredding half a squadron in seconds. Still the humans pressed, fury outweighing fear. Then, at last, the breach. A torpedo from the Resolute slammed through ruptured plating, disappearing deep into the carrier's core. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the Leviathan convulsed, explosions ripping along its spine. The ship split, its death cry echoing across the void as fire swallowed a whole. On every channel, cheers erupted. Human crews shouted, roared, wept. For a fleeting moment, victory tasted real. But Elias didn't smile. His eyes stayed locked on the tactical display, where Dominion cruisers regrouped with renewed fury. Rena saw it too. They're enraged. We killed their beast, but they're not retreating. No, Elias said quietly. They'll never retreat. Not until one side is ash. Malik exhaled slowly, his calm like steel now. Then we make sure it isn't us. For hours, the battle raged on. Every ship burned. Every gun overheated. Every fighter fought to its last breath. The Reach itself trembled as stray fire scarred its surface. By the time the Dominion fleet finally withdrew, space above the colony was a graveyard. Dozens of human ships drifted in ruin. Hundreds of fighters were gone. Platforms smoldered, debris fields orbiting like rings of the dead. Yet the Dominion had lost their carrier, half their cruisers, and more lives than they thought human hands could take. In the aftermath, silence weighed heavier than fire. On the Resolute's bridge, crew slumped over consoles, exhausted. Rena's uniform was scorched, Malik's hands blackened with smoke, Jorah's eyes hollow from strain. Elias stood in the center, battered but unbowed. "We held," he said, his voice raw. "They came to break us. They failed." Rena leaned against her console, breathing ragged. "At what cost, Elias?" "We're bleeding out." He didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted to the viewport, where wreckage spun endlessly. Finally, he said, "Cost means nothing if it buys survival. And today, survival means hope. Far away, in the heart of the Dominion, strategist Corvon, receiving news with simmering rage. The carrier's destruction blazed across his reports, an insult carved into his pride. He rose from his throne, claws curling. "So the humans endure. So be it. If fire cannot break them, we will drown them in storms." His fleet masters bowed, the promise of escalation already forming in their eyes. The war was no longer a campaign. The Dominion did not give Herons Reach time to breathe. A week after their retreat, scouts returned with the worst possible news. Another fleet, larger than the first, moving straight for human space. This one carried siege craft, dreadnoughts, and war engines meant not to conquer but to annihilate. On the bridge of the Resolute, silence hung heavy after the report. Elias Hale stood at the center, shoulders squared, gaze fixed on the stars. His officers waited, each aware of what the message meant. "They're coming with everything," Rena said finally, voice low. Malik's hands rested on the console, steady despite the tension. "If they break us here, Earth itself is next. This colony is the wall between survival and extinction." Jorah didn't flinch when she added, "We don't have the ships to meet them head-on. Not after last week." Elias exhaled slowly. His words were simple, stripped of hesitation. "Then we make this wall unbreakable. We stand here, and we make sure history remembers who held the line." Preparations consumed the Reach. Engineers scavenged wreckage from the last battle, welding surviving fragments into new defenses. Civilians, no longer hiding, brought tools and weapons, transforming every street into a barricade. In orbit, the fleet was a patchwork of survivors. Some ships had no shields, others no armor plating. Yet each captain swore to fight. The air over comms was filled not with fear, but with grim determination. At night, Elias walked the repair bays. He saw scarred soldiers laughing as they strapped into battered fighters. He saw children painting crude human flags onto the hulls of corvettes. Each gesture told him the same truth. Surrender had no place here. The Dominion fleet arrived like a storm. 60 warships slid from hyperspace, their silhouettes blotting out starlight. 2 dreadnoughts led the formation, titans armed with weapons capable of shattering continents. Behind them, carriers belched fighters like locust swarms. The comms crackled with Corvon's voice, deep and cold, transmitted across the void. "Humans of Herons Reach, you have bitten at the hand of the Dominion. You have cost us blood. Now you will cost no more. Yield or be erased." Elias stood before the open channel, eyes hard. "We are not yours to command. You came to break us. You will leave broken." For a moment, silence. Then Corvon's reply, almost amused. "So the insects bare their teeth. Then let them be crushed beneath the storm." The battle began with fire beyond imagining. The Dominion dreadnoughts unleashed their main batteries. Lances of energy gouged into planetary shields, the ground beneath trembling as though the planet itself recoiled. Human ships surged forward to intercept, throwing themselves against impossible odds. Missiles and plasma tore into the Dominion line, punching through shields and flashes of defiance. Fighters dove into swarms, dogfights erupting like miniature wars. On the Resolute, the deck shook with each impact. "Shields at 60%, Malik reported, fingers flying over scorch controls. "Push us closer," Elias ordered. "We fight where their numbers mean less." Rena snapped her gaze to him. "You're taking us inside their formation?" He nodded once. "They expect us to scatter. We won't. We drive into their heart, and we bleed them where it hurts. The fleet followed. Human ships weaved between Dominion giants, trading armor for position. A destroyer rammed a cruiser broadside, detonating in a blaze that tore open the enemy hull. A squadron of fighters lured Dominion wings into planetary flak batteries, sacrificing themselves to unleash a storm of ground fire. Every maneuver cost lives, but every sacrifice carved another scar into the Dominion armada. The dreadnoughts pressed on, their guns gouging deeper into the Reach's defenses. The colony's shield grid flickered, then dimmed under relentless fire. The ground lit with explosions as surface batteries were obliterated one by one. Jorah's voice cracked, shields failing across sectors. If those dreadnoughts fire on the surface without the grid, they won't get the chance, Elias said. His tone carried no doubt, though his eyes betrayed the weight of command. He turned to Rena, prepped a side maneuver. Her head jerked up. That's a suicide run. It's the only run left, Elias answered. The Resolute led the charge toward the nearest dreadnought, flanked by the last intact corvettes. Dominion fire hammered them, tearing holes through hulls, but the formation never wavered. Inside the bridge, alarm screamed. Bulkheads ruptured, smoke flooding the air. Still, Elias stood firm. Target their reactor spine, he ordered. Jorah locked coordinates, hands trembling. Coordinates set. Fire everything, Elias commanded. The Resolute and her escorts unleashed their full arsenal. Torpedoes, plasma, rail slugs, all tore into the dreadnought's core. For a heartbeat, its shields held. Then the human fire pierced through, drilling into its reactor. The dreadnought convulsed, a chain of explosions ripping it apart. The shock wave blasted through the battlefield, scattering fighters like leaves. Cheers erupted across comms. But they died quickly, for the second dreadnought was still advancing. Elias turned, sweat streaking his soot-blackened face. We don't stop now. We take the last one down, whatever it costs. Rena stared at him, jaw tight. You're going to kill us all. He met her eyes. We're already dead if it lives. Better we choose how it ends. The Resolute limped toward the second dreadnought, hull torn, fires raging across decks. Only a handful of escorts remained. Together, they dove into the monster's guns. One by one, the escorts were destroyed, each loss clearing the path closer. The Resolute pressed on, her armor gone, shields flickering like dying embers. Malik's comm finally cracked. Hull breaches in every section. We can't hold. Yes, we can. Elias cut in, voice unyielding. Hold her steady. Rena gripped her console, eyes blazing. If this is the end, then let's make it count. They rammed through the Dominion's fighter screen, engines screaming. The dreadnought filled the viewport, its colossal guns charging to unleash death on the Reach below. Elias gave the final order. All power to engines. Collision course. Gasps rang out from the crew, but no one disobeyed. The Resolute surged forward, faster, burning everything it had left. The Dominion dreadnought unleashed its main battery. Too late. The Resolute slammed into its armored spine, the collision igniting both reactors in a cataclysmic explosion that shattered half the battlefield. The second dreadnought tore apart, fire spilling across the void. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the Dominion fleet, shocked by the loss of both Titans, began to fracture. Ships wavered. Captains hesitated, and one by one they pulled back into hyperspace. Human cheers filled the comms, though many came through broken, crackling, as though spoken through tears. On the surface, the people of Heron's Reach watched as the enemy vanished. Above them, the sky was a graveyard, wreckage drifting, fires still burning. The cost was unthinkable. Of the fleet, only fragments remained. The Resolute was gone, her name already etched into legend, yet they had held. Humanity had stood against the storm and endured. Far away, Corvon received a report in silence. Both dreadnoughts destroyed, fleet scattered, humans unbroken. At last he spoke, voice dark. They choose death over.